So it was a unique moment in Texas history for the Republicans to control the state house and have a new Republican speaker, and the Senate had already turned Republican a few years earlier, and we obviously controlled the governorship as well.
Yeah, it was great times, and big times for Republicans. And you served admirably enough to get appointed as chair of the House Higher Education Committee. You passed several significant pieces of legislation, perhaps none more critical than House Bill 51. Can you give us an update on where the Tier 1 universities process is for our state? This of course, was the bill that allowed for that aims to add more Tier 1 colleges to Texas.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for mentioning that. It's been a very successful effort. A lot of folks didn't think we could move this quickly to get that many new research and emerging research universities in place and designated in Texas. So the Carnegie R1 level designation only applied to, I think, 3 universities when we started our effort. And that was UT Austin, Texas A&M at College Station, and Rice University. And we now have 8 as a result of our hard work and the hard work of our emerging research universities. And it was House Bill 51 was a landmark in the sense that we finally found a way to kind of create some objective standards and have a competition. We couldn't just pick someone because partisanship and regional politics wouldn't allow the state to sort of select the next Tier 1 and then focus a lot of funds, because obviously if you picked one school or one region, the other regions of the state, their representatives didn't think that was such a keen idea. So we came up with this plan, this blueprint for objective standards, and a number of schools have now reached that level, which is exciting, and they did so much sooner than what all the higher ed pundits. So now we have, in addition to the 3 I mentioned, UT Dallas and Texas Tech and the University of Houston, and then also University of North Texas, UT Arlington, and Texas State University, UT El Paso, and UT San Antonio right there. So it's been a dramatic improvement in the research that's going on in Texas. And this is really important for economic development purposes. All these grants from private and public institutions, the Department of Defense, the National Institutes of Health, and National Academy of Science. So these are really large opportunities for applied and basic research where the Texas can be on the cutting edge of innovation. And this drives our economy, obviously drives demographics. And so it helps our economy become more diversified and more high tech and more modern, and draws migration to our state, which we've seen in dramatic fashion. So it's been a great effort. The matching program, it's put more private dollars into public higher education than's ever occurred in our history. And so it's been a success that's been more dramatic than even I imagined.
We are talking to Dan Branch, who is former state representative and former chair of the House Higher Ed Committee. When we come back, we're going to talk about a project he has spearheaded out at Love Field, and a little bit more about that. So this is Deconstructing Dallas. Sean Williams, Ryan Trimble. We'll be right back right after this.
Does your family love mac and cheese? If your family is anything like mine, when dinner time rolls around, your little critters are banging down the pantry door for a box of that cheesy goodness. Well, we here at Deconstructing Dallas have just the thing for you. That's right, it's Wisconsin's finest organic mac and cheese. Wisconsin's Finest is made with real Wisconsin cheddar cheese and organic pasta that will satisfy all your cravings. Whether you like white cheddar shells, classic mac and yellow cheddar, or my kids' favorite safari animal shaped pasta, you can't miss with Wisconsin's Finest. Find your own box of Wisconsin's Finest by visiting walmart.com today and support this outstanding local Metroplex company. So what are you waiting for? Get your box of Wisconsin's Finest organic mac and cheese today and get ready to hear your family say, I love mac and cheese.
Welcome back, Deconstructing Dallas. Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. Shawn, I know I have talked your ear off about this, so I'm really excited to get to talk to former State Representative Dan Branch about this project out at Love Field. A decade ago, I think we were right on time. You were probably, nice 2 hours early to your flight, Mr. Chairman. Not rushing at all. But I was dropping you off at Love Field right about the time that the renovations at the airport had begun, and you had been reading. You'd been reading about the transition from. You'd been reading about the JFK assassination, and you turned to me and said, "Ryan, we have to find the place on the tarmac where Lyndon Johnson was sworn in as president." So I said, "Okay," and so I started asking a few folks, and lo and behold, we got to put together a pretty incredible series of meetings that culminated in a working group actually identifying where on the tarmac LBJ was sworn in. Can you tell us about this project and why that was so critical to you to find that location?
Well, you bring back some fond memories. I was reading about the assassination. I think the Manchester's book, A Death of a President, and those famous images. We were coming up at some point, I think, on an anniversary, maybe at the 50th anniversary, and then there was this construction going on, which we now have this beautiful, beautiful Love Field that's been totally redeveloped. But it wasn't so long ago that the process had begun. And so it occurred to me that in this redevelopment, where they were going to move a lot of walls and build some new buildings and wings, that we should find exactly where that happened. And it was, you could go down the old East Wing where there used to be some American Airlines service, or even Delta, but no longer for the shuttle. And so it was all empty. And so I started looking around and ultimately, raised the issue with you. And we put a group together from the sixth floor museum and from the aviation department and the city. And even, I remember Harlan Crow came to one of our meetings.
Sure.
And the Corrigan, the architects, and the space designers, and Southwest Airlines was obviously influencing the process and helping with the city and redevelop the airport. So ultimately, we got lucky, and there had been one of the people that worked in the aviation department on the second floor that had taken a photograph when the plane was Air Force One was repositioned to take off. After they had landed, and then the tragedy had happened, and downtown, and there was never the lunch. And so at some point when they brought the body from Parkland, and there's a lot of drama around all that, of course, but ultimately there was a photograph that the folks at the sixth floor museum had in their archives, indicating because the photographer had caught a piece of the building where he was standing, we could do the math and the geometry and figure out exactly where the plane was. And then within the plane, I think, which is preserved at Akron in Ohio at a airport museum, we were able to determine, fairly precisely the location of where LBJ was sworn in as the next president of the United States following the death of John F. Kennedy. And so we have preserved that moment and place of the transition of power at Love Field, and now it's there on the tarmac with a marker, and there's a window that they repositioned to you can see it's right before you go into sort of the TSA or when you're leaving. There's a area there as you head to the parking garage where you can look out and see where this transition took place. And as we're going through the transition from President Trump to what appears to be President-elect Biden, that it's reminds us all of the importance of a transition of power and a peaceful transition of power in our country.
I want to follow along on that line, Chairman. Because the project, the working title for the project is Transition from Tragedy, and fortunately, we haven't had any incidents like what we had in November 1963. But why is the peaceful transition so critical? Every country hasn't had that experience as it relates to transition. So why is it so important, critical?
Well, obviously, we don't have dictators. We don't have people that use the military to keep themselves in power, and the people ultimately make that decision. And then our leaders, then it's their responsibility to exit. And it's always a great scene when you see the moving vans at the White House on the split screen, and then the people up at the Capitol for the inaugural ceremonies, and the combination of when we do have a change in our office of the president, that's done in a peaceful way, and while we didn't have the normal transition following the assassination in 1963. In fact, it was the only inauguration, so to speak, only president who was sworn in west of the Mississippi, and only like the 3 locations outside of the nation's capital at the time where a president's been sworn in. And so it's important for us to memorialize that, but it's obviously even more important that transition is peaceful and it occurs. And it's something that I think we should be mindful of every 4 or 8 years when we do have a new president, that this is a hallmark of our republic and our representative democracy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know I could, we could talk for a long time about this. It's one of my most favorite memories of working for you, and just your vision to preserve that spot. I did want to give our listeners an opportunity to find you or follow you on social media. So where can they go to find you?
Well, I think I'm on Facebook and still on Facebook and Twitter. There's Texans for Dan Branch, or you can look at just under Dan Branch or at Dan Branch. And so I'd be happy for people that want to hit a like or follow. That'd be I think we're still somewhere around 13,000 plus folks on Twitter, and maybe over 90,000 on our Facebook page. So,
that's great. I did see we're still getting the at Texans for Dan Chapstick is the best tweets every now and then. So
now I just got to say, Shawn, that Ryan coming up with a logo, a campaign logoed chapstick with his patented flavor was clearly the most in demand item of our campaign swag over our 12 years in office.
And what was the flavor, Ryan? You have not shared this.
It was like a tropical pina colada smelling flavor, which I think one day I was sitting there smelling all the samples I'd gotten from the vendor, and the chairman came around the corner and kind of looked at me like I was crazy. But mad scientist Trimble figured it out, and that was a win for us. So
King of Swag is what we call him around here, Chairman. As you can imagine.
He was, and the chip clips still have longevity, and we had let's see, flashlights and keychain flashlights. We